I'm your host, Jacob Verdin. Come on now. It's Friday. You can celebrate. Made it through the week. Got the weekend ahead of you. Today we'll be breaking down the odds drop by FanDuel. Vegas trying to guess LSU versus Clemson. There's a couple of other games on there too that we'll break down. Charlie Weiss, LSU's offensive coordinator, getting more love shown to him from NFL teams. Now apparently the Giants are in the mix to try to hire LSU's play caller for next year. Senior Bowl preview, it is tomorrow at 1:30. We got a stock watch list, couple of players, LSU notes on who to watch, who I think will have a very good week and whose stock will benefit from it. And then LSU women's basketball update. They got a win versus Arkansas yesterday, what that means, what's up next for them, and how they're doing in this SEC stretch. Let's jump into the top topic. LSU Clemson. Lane Kiffin, Dabo Swinney. This is going to be your week one matchup. Rematch of this year's week one matchup, but it's not the same feel. It doesn't feel like the same game. It doesn't feel like people are confused on who's going to win. LSU's clear-cut favorites, 10-point favorites to be exact from the people at FanDuel, minus 430 on the money line, Clemson plus 330 on theirs. The total for this game is at 51 points. Now, I'll be real, I could see this one going under. Just because it's a week one game, the defense for LSU the defense for both teams might not be 100% in the swing. They might not have found their footing yet. There might be a couple of busted coverages or just missed opportunities that lead to the opposing offense scoring. But by that same token, you could say the same thing for the offense. So it's like 51 points seems a little bit high. It's like an NFL damn total at this point. I don't know. The second problem, the devil's advocate of the total, is that it's Lane Kiffin. And he could damn near put up 40 points against Clemson potentially, especially with the Clemson team that we've been seeing as a league. Like, you do never know. It's any given Saturday. And then Dabo Swinney is a championship coach too. So, like, there's that. I'll give him that credit if there's going to be anything. There's not that many championship coaches right now active in college football. You got Kirby Smart. You got Ryan Day. Now you got Kurt Cignetti. And you got Dabo Swinney. So it's a handful of guys that have been to the top of college football. So naturally, you don't want to underestimate them. But Clemson's sucked. I'm just going to call a spade. And it's rough. Obviously, that's not the spot that Dabo Swinney wants his guys to be in. But that's the spot that they find themselves in. They're not a good football team. They're in the middle of the pack of the ACC. If you look at all these recruiting rankings and these transfer portal rankings, their portal classes outside the top 50. It's the third worst in the ACC. They only have 9 commits. And the recruiting class, like, it's not horrible, but it's not great. It's number 19. You even got Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels getting more recruits and more commits than Dabo Swinney and Clemson. So that roster turnaround this offseason, I think, is one of the biggest indicators as to why they're a 10-point underdog and why, quite frankly, it makes sense. Because Clemson is behind their process comparatively to other schools, compared to a team like LSU, who's got the number one portal class, who doesn't have as many question marks. And they still do have the fact that they have one of the best head coaches in college, doesn't have a national championship. But you can argue he's toe-to-toe with Dabo Swinney in just about every single regard. But it does feel like Clemson's getting a little irrelevant in recruiting. It's tough to see Bill Belichick come in and instantly find his footing better. Now, they're probably doing different strategies. They're in a different spot. He's a little more desperate, especially whenever you arrive after a coach got fired. Naturally, you're going to have to fill in a lot more holes. A lot of people are going to hit the portal. A lot of people are going to have question marks. You saw it at LSU, even with somebody as prominent as Coach Kiffin. So Bill Belichick coming in, definitely different approach. But the fact that his classes are ranking higher than Dabo's, I think, is an alarm bell ringing for the legitimacy of Clemson and the ACC. And it might not be fair to say, it might not be fair to judge Dabo Swinney and Clemson for their lack of production in the portal or in recruiting classes. But that's the backbone of your team. That's the fundamental foundation of what you're going to be building over there in South Carolina. And if you're not able to get it done, if you're not able to get the bodies in the room, it's going to be tough to coach like Dabo Swinney has coached as of late. And that's why I think that they are clearly outmatched in this week one game. That's my opinion. Now, the line can change, right? We're miles ahead of this. This is very, very early. A lot of things can happen. The biggest thing, one of the most obvious things, is going to be injuries. That's going to be something that people are talking about, specifically the injury to Sam Levitt. I think that that's going to be a talking point all summer long, especially if, hypothetically, he's out for the entirety of spring. I could see the public getting skeptical about that a little bit. I wouldn't be skeptical. I still trust the process, and I think that he'll be able to hit the ground running with all kind of resources at his disposal. Obviously, everybody knows about the virtual reality headsets that can put you in the game without you really having to be in the game. Garrett Nussmeier used it a lot this year to try to take physical reps out of practice so he could heal his torso, but still get the mental reps and still get to, work the muscles, so to speak, going through progressions, sitting there in a pocket against a defense that is going to mimic exactly what you're playing on Saturdays. That, I think, is going to be able to alleviate some of the concerns about spring. The tough thing that you might not be able to alleviate is the connection of the chemistry with the wide receivers. However, there are a lot of other ways that you can create that connection, right? Just because he's hurt doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to bond off the field, be in the same rooms, talk about routes, talk about combinations. But he can also, and I don't know how big of a deal this would be, especially with a lower foot throwing injury. But I mean, just you would think they'd be able to get him out there in some stationary throwing. I mean, dude, get him a chair. Get him a chair. Put a receiver 10 feet in front of him and have him throw the football. It might not be able to be the same. He might not be able to stand his feet either and balance while he's rotating. But there could be something that they do. He's not just going to be screwed. Obviously, there's going to be no contact. Obviously, they don't want to put him in pads. But there has to be some type of practice that they're going to be putting him in there. Now, I think LSU stays large favorites against Clemson. I think that they, like I said, Clemson's clearly outmatched. LSU's the better team. The biggest question mark and the biggest thing that everybody's going to want to see is how does Lane Kiffin turn around LSU before week 1? You got a handful of months to do so. You got 40 damn transfers. You got an entire new coaching staff, new offensive line, new quarterback, yada, yada, yada. The list goes on and on and on. You're going to have to make sure that you're ready to go when it is week 1. You don't have no warm-ups. You don't have no week 0 game. You might have a spring game, but that's about it in the grand scheme of things. Now, for week 0 games, I want to say this before we move on. I found this interesting. Clemson apparently, allegedly, tried to schedule a week 0 game. Now, you can do it that way, what you want. Now, I'm not trying to say that Clemson's underprepared. I'm not trying to say that this is a red alert for Clemson fans, but I think this played into a little bit the odds. I'm not going to lie. And it might not be a big deal, but it's just the fact that if you're looking to play more games, I would think it's a bigger indication that you need to prove something more often than not. Kirby Smart said it best in terms of teams want an extra game at the end of the year to be able to qualify for the playoffs. I might even argue that an extra game at the beginning of the year is indicative of that. You're trying to play a smaller team the week before LSU because you're like, actually, I think I need a little bit more competition. Actually, I need to see this team live a little more. We need to do a couple more things before we can get out there. Sure, Dabo's busy with the NCAA and the tampering. Maybe that's putting that's a reason as to why they need more time. I don't know. LSU and Clemson, though, this year, I think it'll be a completely different matchup. I'm not going to lie. LSU, 2 possession favorites, 7 months out. I think they stay it. I think they cover it. And I think they start the year pretty good. But it's another one of those things like last year where you're going to want to really, really, really taper your expectations on what this win means for LSU. Because if you beat Clemson, who's really not looked at as that serious of a contender, what kind of value does that hold at this point? What does it matter? Does it? Because last year they were ranked high, number 4, I believe. You were ranked number 9, and then you win that game, and everybody's putting you in the top 5. But were they a top 5 quality team? That's going to be the question that you're going to have to ask. And I have an early answer for you, and I'll say no. Let's move on. Charlie Weiss, Jackson Dart, New York Giants. I mean, we just talked about this at the beginning of the week. But the Philadelphia Eagles coming in and trying to swoop LSU, their offensive coordinator, out from under him. But he's going to get love shown to him. This is going to happen. I tried to tell y'all it's going to continue to happen all year long, next year, the year after. I mean, this is going to be a never-ending cycle until inevitably he takes a job. And there's only so many jobs that you could pass on. And you can look at the situation with Lane Kiffin as well. And there's only so many jobs that you can say no to. And he said that as well. And I'm not trying to say that the Giants are one that you can deny. But what do you do when you get to that point is a valuable question to be able to ask. No interview set as of yet between these two. Actually, the Giants are interviewing someone else tomorrow But supposedly his name is popping up in league circles, and Jackson Dart just did an interview where he talked about his experience with Charlie during the 3 years together at Ole Miss, and supposedly he put in a good word for his former coach. Now, I'd imagine he stays at LSU, just like he did with the other situation. In my humble opinion, you do have a tough decision to make, but I think it's clear what side of the fence that he's leaning on. But I want to point out the fact that he's getting so much of this attention so quickly. And I want to double down and say the hires like Ty Hatcher, that's why they're so pivotal. That's why they're so important. Because now you have a transitional next man up in the building, learning from him, under him. Not to say that it's going to be exactly the same and there won't be no growing pains, but this is a valuable situation for LSU if their offensive coordinator is going to be hearing out job offers for the next year. It's good to have that many bodies in there that can take the torch and be the next man up and walk into there. LSU did a similar situation years ago with offensive coordinator when Denbrock left, and you promoted Joe Sloan and you promoted from within, and it did a variety of things for you. Obviously, it kept continuity. Of course, it kept recruits for a little bit, you thought. I'm not trying to just completely say it was a horrible idea in that instance, but it just maybe didn't turn out because of the personnel. Might not always be that way. Sometimes I think if you get the right mind in there and you give them the right opportunity, they're going to be able to seize it. Now, back to Charlie and the Giants. It's a tough decision. It's not like it's just a no-brainer, right? John Harbaugh, great coach, Super Bowl caliber. The Giants have a lot of talent as well. Scatterbo, Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, shout out LSU, Jalen Hyatt. I think he's tipped his hand at wanting to stay at LSU, though. I mean, he just turned down the damn Eagles. You want to talk about talent? Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts. Oh, you know. You watch football. If he's going to tip his hand and say no to the Eagles, I'd imagine he'd say no to the Giants. It's just tough because now you got the personal connection, right? Now you got Jackson Dart. Now you got that tie in there. Where it's like, okay, but he already has a very good, close connection with the quarterback. He's been his coach for multiple years at that, where he really found the most success, where he clicked. And I'm sure when the Giants are in, they're going to have a pretty handsome offer. But another thing why I don't think he will accept this job is because if you looked at the teams that are ready for success now, LSU and the Eagles would be at the top of this list. The Giants are more of a young team that are going to take a little bit to ease in and settle in and get to be a contender. I don't know if this is a move that you make as of right now. Because if you're on LSU squad, no telling what happens. You and Ole Miss just push deep into the playoffs. I know they're feeling like a playoff run is almost inevitable at this point in Baton Rouge. So why miss out on it? Why have to watch it on TV? Why not be a part of it? Be boots on the ground. Like I said, I think Charlie stays, but interesting decisions here. And I find it interesting as well that 2 NFL teams are going to be tied to his name in 1 week alone. It'll be an interesting year. His name will be floating. Blake Baker's name will be floating. There will be change by this point next year for the coordinators for LSU. I would not be surprised. I'd be happy if they didn't have to, but I would be surprised as well. Let's talk Senior Bowl real quick. So, like I said, tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. on NFL Network, Senior Bowl is live. You get to see some LSU talent in action. So far, the athletes over there, Garrett Nussmeier, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Barian Brown, Jack Pyburn, Bar Sharp. They did have A.J. Halsey, but he pulled out. Now, in terms of the top candidates from the event, you already know how I feel about my guy, Garrett Nussmeier. I think he can boost his stock tremendously. We talked about the quarterbacks that were there the other day. I'll add one to the list, Diego Pavia. Diego's in a little bit of a bind, man. Diego's in a bind because there's something that people are talking about with him that he will simply not be able to change. It doesn't matter how many bowl games he goes to. It doesn't matter how fast he runs in the 40. He will be 5'9" regardless. And that aspect of Diego's draft stock or draft profile, if you will, I think hinders him more than Garrett Nussmeier's. Did Diego have a great season, become a Heisman finalist, put Vandy in a completely different conversation to what they've been in recently? Yeah. He was a culture changer. He was a big, big catalyst for that. I don't think that he has the tools at the next level. I think this is when the skill set starts to separate you here. It's fine and dandy that you were able to be the MVP for Vandy and the Commodores for the last few years, but that play style is not happening in the NFL, buddy. It's not. Garrett Nussmeier's play style, however, I think can fit very well in the NFL. And if he cleans some of these things up, the decision making, the throwing, maybe a little bit more mobility, you're going to be able to see things out of him that you had not seen before. There's somebody else, though, out of LSU's room that I think will be able to boost their stock entirely after this week. And that guy's Chris Hilton Jr. I can't lie to you. I got to give him a lot of credit as well. You see the graphic on the left. He is the only athlete to participate in all 4 All-Star games. I have to tip my cap to you, dog. I have to. He was at the East West Shrine Bowl. Now he's at the Senior Bowl. He was at the Hula Bowl, the American Bowl. He's the only person to do all 4 of these before the draft. And why? He needs it. Simply put, he has no other choice. He needs this weekend. He needs tomorrow to go well for him if he's going to be able to have a chance at getting drafted in the NFL. Now, obviously, he'll test off the charts. I'll be the first one to tell you. When that 40-yard dash comes, watch. Keep your eyes peeled on Chris Hilton because he could be a 4.3 guy. He's already tested 4.4 in his sophomore year. He's already been clocked at 23 miles per hour during his time at LSU. If you could translate that when it matters, when those stopwatches and all the lasers are out and pointing, if you can hit that 4.39, 4.38 shit, drop it to a 4.35, you put yourself in a top 15, maybe even top 10 wide receiver conversation. And I cannot stress this enough. I know people are going to look at me crazy, especially with the lack of production that you saw. If you look, he only had 10 catches all year for LSU, 122 yards, 0 touchdowns. He almost had more than that in the bowl game against Baylor. So it's like that. A lot of people haven't seen what we expected from Chris Hilton. He's had ups and he's had downs. He's had flashes of potential. He's never been able to realize it for whatever reason, injuries, overcrowded depth chart, a tough season, whatever the case may be. It hasn't worked out at LSU, but that does not mean that it's not going to work out at all. I'll give you a comparison. Kayshon Boutte, his last season at LSU did not go well. A lot of people were criticizing him, wondering what the hell's going on. He makes a decision to come back. Then he goes back to the NFL draft, back and forth, gets landed in New England at the Patriots. And he's found a very, very, very good role on an offense that, by the way, in a few weeks is competing for the Super Bowl, the biggest game in the entire NFL. And Kayshon Boutte has been one of the huge pieces to their success. So my point to Chris Hilton is it doesn't matter that your final year in college didn't go the way you wanted it to, and it doesn't matter that you don't have the statistics during your time at LSU to be able to back up the fact that you're a high-quality prospect. What can back that up is your performance in the Combine and the Pro Day and tomorrow at the Senior Bowl. If he has a few good plays, can show off that speed, can show off his effortless route running ability, which is very important. Some guys are going to be shaking their head, moving all over the place, giving everything up, telegraphing everything to the DB. Chris Hilton, he will blow right past you, and you didn't even know he was starting to run. Like he's just sitting here sliding all around you. That aspect to me, when I see that, it looks like it can translate at the next level. We just gave Diego Pavia a bunch of hell in a handbasket for the fact that his play style will not translate to the pro level. And I think Chris Hilton's the complete opposite of that. Not only is he a bigger wide receiver, around 6'2", 6'3", not only is he very fast, I think if you can get, you obviously can flash back to the South Carolina game where Brian Kelly was yelling at him for jumping and all this good stuff. If you can get that high point, that 50-50 ball out of there, he's got every single thing you can ask for in a wide receiver. Every single level, from the short field to the route running to the deep route to the 50-50, the physicality, you can get active in the run block. He's got an ability at the next level to be able to see a boost. I can't lie. I feel like every single wide receiver for LSU obviously has the ability to boost their stock just because of the way the offense was looked at all year. You're all going to have your expectations around them. I think the expectation you have of Chris Hilton, though, it can be beaten easier than the expectations you have for guys like Barry Brown, Aaron Anderson. And like I said, a lot of talented wide receivers at LSU. Zay Thomas has shown off as well during these bowls before the draft. It's just everybody knows they have talent. Now you're able to display it against prospects that are going to be on your level in the NFL. They're seniors. They've been going through college programs for years and years, and now the cream is rising, if you want to be real. I can't lie. Barry Brown, Aaron Anderson, no doubt will get drafted. I'll go give my opinion briefly on both of them. Aaron Anderson, I think this is his problem. This is going to be what critiques him. It's the same thing we said about Diego Pavia. It's the size. People have notes on Aaron Anderson at the Senior Bowl talking about him having trouble getting through contact at the highest level, physicality, slowing him down and delaying releases at the start of a route. these kind of things I think are going to be knock Aaron Anderson a little bit. He produced a decent amount. He was third in receptions at LSU, fourth in receiving yards. The year prior, I believe he was tied for first. He's been able to have a nice career at LSU, though. Him and Garrett Nussmeier had a good connection, and he's even had injuries he's suffered from as well. I don't know how he'll be able to handle that physicality side of it in the NFL. If he's having trouble at the Senior Bowl and he's having trouble getting through all this contact at the beginning of his routes, I think that could be something potentially slows him down in the NFL. And you never know, because Tyreek Hill was able to make it work. Obviously, Devontae Smith is not too small, but he's skinnier, and he is a smaller guy. They've had times where people have made it work. You'll just have to see him make it work. That's going to be something that people are going to drag him for, though, all draft season long. Barian Brown, very speedy. He has more upside, I feel like, when you're talking about him versus Aaron Anderson, just from their draft profile. I thought he'd have a big year when he arrived in the portal. The speed is a very, very sexy trait, if you will, for a wide receiver. Whenever you have that, it's tough to guard. I mean, not only will you need double teams, not only does the defense have to pay attention to you in a whole different regard, but it's valuable to be able to drag that much attention in a scheme, because now you can be a decoy at this point. I can't lie to you. What we saw with him and Garrett Nussmeier all year, chemistry very clear. Barian led LSU in receptions and receiving yards. He was definitely the most productive LSU wide receiver all season long, I will say, in my opinion. Now, I'm doubling down on my take, though. I just think right now, in terms of expectations, Chris Hilton has the most to gain, and he has the most room to grow. I believe that he's going to be able to seize it, just because he's got nothing to show for the year. You know what I mean? And I say that as respectfully as possible. Whatever the case may be, whatever happened, he doesn't have that much statistics. And if somebody is going to see something in Chris Hilton, or going to be able to see some type of potential, it's going to have to happen now or tomorrow at the Senior Bowl, and then during the pro day season, during the combine season. I think that obviously everybody wants to capitalize off of this moment, but I don't think Chris Hilton has a choice. It's not necessarily a want to capitalize at this point. It's a need to capitalize. I think he puts it together, though. I think he boosts his stock. I could see Chris going third or fourth round. And that's not the greatest draft position, but once you're in the door, Chris, you just kick that thing open, bro. That's all there is to it. I believe in him. I think he's got a very good chance at the next level. It'll be interesting to watch tomorrow, 1:30, Senior Bowl, handful of LSU guys performing. Let's talk about some of these odds for college football. We talked about LSU and Clemson. You can see it right there. Tigers 10-point favorites. Insane on the money line. Oh, it's changed. I see in the screenshot. It's already changed because Clemson was plus 330. Whatever. We'll ride with it. We'll rock. So Notre Dame right here. What are they on the screenshot? 1050. It's trash. Notre Dame at that odds. That's trash. What are we doing? Why? Why are you dropping odds? But we're going to put a minus 1,000 favorite out there on the money line. That I find very interesting. I would leave that one alone. I wouldn't even have released this. With them being minus 1,000, though, if you look, LSU is the second favorite money line on this entire page. Very interesting. Very interesting, I find. Let's flash to week 2. Texas, Ohio State, rematch from last year. This time, Arch Manning gets to do it in his house. Gets to take the Buckeyes on in Texas. It's his year to prove he's a top NFL quarterback. Obviously, this year, people were looking for him to be a number 1 pick or a top 10 pick or maybe a Heisman or this or that. The hype was a little too big for year 1, in my humble opinion. Year 2, though, I do think Arch Manning will be able to grow into his potential, if you will. Texas minus about 100. Ohio State around plus 100. Pretty much pick them at that point. Totals at 47. This is the only time I'm going to say this for any odds, just because this is too early. This is premature. I can't help myself, though. Sark and Arch need this one. They're going to win. Texas, money line. Come on. That's it. No, I'm not giving no other picks, though, because this is insane to say. But other week 1 games, Virginia and NC State, UNC and TCU. Virginia close favorites, high total. Nah, not going to pay attention to that one, quite frankly. UNC versus TCU, though. Belichick getting disrespected every which way, bro. Whether it be the Hall of Fame or his team being an underdog, it don't matter. I think, quite frankly, he might like it like that. I'm not sure that Bill Belichick cares if he's Vegas favorite or not. And it's probably better that you're an underdog. Baylor, Auburn, that's an interesting one. Auburn favored, Baylor around plus 200. Remember, Baylor did get DJ Lagway, though. I did find that move a little weird during the offseason. I mean, look, whatever situation fits you best. And I did say that there will be a team that comes to the forefront of college sports, just like Texas Tech did. If you get the NIL shit situated, it's easy to get talent in at that point. I mean, once you get the money through and the deals through, and you can say, hey, we're actually a spot over here. Now Texas Tech has one good year under their belt. They win the Big 12. They go to the playoffs. It's a little bit easier. I think another team could be able to join them, if you will. Baylor being that team. Now, with Lagway going to Baylor, it reminds me a little bit, and not much, because Darian Mintz started at Tulane, went to Duke, now he's at Miami, but it's like Lagway's taking a step back. He's almost doing it backwards. He went from Florida, now he's going to Baylor. He's going to take a few years, maybe 1 year at that lower level, potentially get some success, college football playoff appearance, maybe. Then you can go forward to inevitably be an SEC quarterback or an NFL prospect. But I guess I say this to say sometimes you got to go backwards to go forward, man. And that's what DJ Lagway's doing in this spot. So interesting odds to break down for you. Kind of gives you a glimpse of where everybody's at program-wise. Clemson being very underrated. LSU being very respected. Notre Dame having the chip on the shoulder. Auburn looking like a threat over Baylor. Bill Belichick getting disrespected again. They got a lot of themes, if you will, from this sheet, but we also got a lot of time in between now and when those games start. So a lot could change, including the LSU game. So I would take everything with a grain of salt right there. LSU women's basketball. Let's talk about this before we head out for the weekend. So, women's team got a W versus Arkansas last night. 22-point win. They beat them 92-70. LSU had 6 players scoring double digits. Top 2 tied at 17. Of course, Flau'jae and Michaela Williams. Full Wiley wasn't one of the 6 people in double digits either. Very interesting, just to look at the depth from that standpoint. And a side note, you still have Kayla Gilbert on the roster. She hasn't played. Kim Mulkey said she's dealing with family issues. The status hasn't changed. But I did want to say that if she does come back for tournament time, you'll have a fresh guard coming off the bench in tandem with Bella Hines, Jada Richard, Malaysia Full-Wiley. You're going to have a lot of pieces that are going to be able to play in that spot for Kim Mulkey. I can't lie to you. But yeah, another SEC dub keeps pushing LSU to the top of the standings. There's a lot to be proud about so far with what you've done, but you do have a lot left, if you will. Your biggest game, quite frankly, South Carolina is the biggest test left, in my opinion. It's at home Saturday, February 14th. South Carolina's number 3 right now. Only loss is to Texas, who you got done. But upcoming schedule for LSU, Alabama at home on Sunday. Then on the road Thursday to Texas. They got a game on Super Bowl Sunday versus Auburn at 1 p.m., which is crazy. Super Bowl Sunday. But, yeah, women's team doing very good. I think they are going to be a threat, if you will. It's just about keeping everybody healthy and getting to that point in the March Madness bracket where you're able to shine and show off all the wrinkles that you've added to this team. Like I said, depth is not going to be a concern, especially at guard. You got multiple forwards and Amaya and Cade that are going out there and succeeding. And the post play has always been there at LSU, but the guard play to match it has been the question. And I think this year you've answered that question. Now, obviously, everything's going to have to go your way. Tournament runs require a lot more luck than they do skill sometimes. I know it sounds crazy to say, but it's just the truth. Sometimes those tournaments and those Cinderella runs, you need a rabbit's foot in your pocket, bro. Simply put. I'm about to hop out of here. Remember, they play Sunday. Senior Bowl tomorrow at 1:30, and we are live Monday at 9 a.m. So appreciate your time. Y'all enjoy your weekend. Hit the thumbs up. We're out of here. This has been the Verdin Verdict, and I'm your guy, Jacob Verdin.